involved because they might get hurt. It's this health and safety kick that they're going on. That's why they walk around in full body armour. And if you think the bit you can see is ridiculous, you should see the boxes and the knee shin pads and the elbow pads that they're wearing underneath the rest of their uniform. You know, if it was steel plate, they could be qualified. All they need is a sword and they'd be a fully fledged equipped knight. But basically, they won't get involved. It's wrong. What you have to do as a police officer is exude confidence. I had a man on my beat, we called him Tiny. He was 7'3" tall, he weighed 30 stone. He pimped for his sister, which shows what a charming fellow he was, and he regularly used to go around and rob the punters of the prostitutes. And it took 12 police officers to arrest him one day, and Tiny was being so violent that my friend Gripper, who was a heavyweight boxer for the police, took one of the old Lignum Vita truncheons, lifted it up and hit him right on the head with it as hard as he could, which was very hard, and it never fazed him. And I used to follow Tiny around when I was on duty, and he'd say to me, "You're following me?" And I'd say, "Correct." And he'd say to me, "That's harassment." And I'd say, "By God, you're a bright lad. That's absolutely correct." And he'd say, "But why?" And I said, "Well, Tiny, you know you're an arse, and I know you're an arse, and you're going to be a well-behaved arse while I'm on duty." And he used to look at me. Never again, it took 12 policemen to arrest him. And he used to look at me as though to say, "I want to hit him." But he doesn't look worried. I wonder if he's ex-SAS or something and could kill me with his little finger. And he never, ever made to hit me. And I would follow him around all night long, everywhere he went. And eventually he got fed up and he'd go home, which was great. And basically, what it is, it's confidence. You have to exude confidence as a police officer. Now you see police officers walking around 2 and 3 at a time, don't you? Because they won't police on their own. And yet, from your point of view as a taxpayer, one policeman can walk down your road, one policeman can walk down that road, and another policeman can walk down that road, and they see 3 times as much, and they keep down 3 times as much crime. And that surely is the object of the exercise. It's to keep the crime down. Now, I used to walk around, I never ever wore a fluorescent jacket. My sergeant used to go ballistic at me, "You've got to wear your fluorescent jacket." So I refused to wear a fluorescent jacket. They gave me a bulletproof vest. I had one of the old-fashioned ones. It was a white thing, you wore it under your shirt. It had Kevlar to stop the bullets. And underneath the Kevlar, to stop the knives, there was like plate armour. All little links of little plates linked together with little chain links. And it was heavy, and it was hot, and it was uncomfortable. And if you happened to get into a police car and sit down, it used to come up, bosh, and cut your throat off at the jaw. I never wore it. It stayed in my locker the whole time. You don't need it. A police officer's uniform is better than a suit of armour. The number of people who will actually assault a police officer is minimal. It's getting more and more. And it's getting more and more because the police officers are getting more and more timid. And people think, well, you can see he's a bit worried, so I'm going to push this to the limit. And they do. I used to have a friend of mine. He was walking down the road and there was a gang of yobs there and they were all giving him a lot of mouth. And as he walked through, one of them, the big one, the mouthy one, barged into him. He grabbed him by the scruff of the neck, he threw him up against the nearest wall, and he said, "Right, I'll give you one chance. Go home now. Or I'm going to take you down the police station and your head's going to beat off every wall all the way." The rest of the gang just stood there gobsmacked, Because how can one policeman on his own walk in and pick the gang leader up and hop him off a wall in front of all of them? He must have something that they don't know about that makes him unafraid of the gang. And all in fact it is a brave front. You're just putting on a front. You are showing confidence. And you will never, as a police officer, hit problems if you show confidence. You see pub fights, don't you? You see it on the television all the time in these police programmes, where the police arrive at the pub and there's all these drunken yobs lying around fighting all over the place, and the police dive in mob-handed and start dragging people up, and then the girlfriends come in, leave him alone, and then somebody comes and drags them away, and before you know where you are, you've got the next best thing to a riot on your hands. You see it on the telly, don't you? I was driving down the road one night in a police car. 40 blokes came galloping out of a pub, start fighting on the pavement. I said to the driver of the police car, stop the car. He was a Sri Lankan Special Constable. And he said, no, we've got this call to do. I said, stop the car. He said, no, we've got this call to do. I said, stop the bloody car now. And he stopped the car, and I've got out, walked up the road, stood in the middle of the road, clapping. They stop and look at me. I said to them, I can see you guys have had a nice night tonight. It's time to go home. They looked at me, I'm standing there, I'm a policeman in uniform, no hat, still in the car. And they look up the road, there's no policeman. They look down the road, my Sri Lankan friend had pulled the car around the corner so he couldn't see what was going on. When I got back to him, he was steadfast, he sat in the car with his white knuckles off the wheel as hard as he could get it. And they start fighting again. So I clap my hands again. So you boys are not understanding what I'm saying to you. You can either sleep in your own beds tonight, or I can allocate you one down the police station. I couldn't care less. I'm here till 6 o'clock in the morning. Makes no difference to me. At least if I'm in the police station doing the paperwork, I'm drinking lots of tea and I'm nice and warm, instead of being out here on a cold night. And they looked and they thought, okay, we'll go home. And two blokes who've been fighting start walking off together. I said, oi, come on, you go that way, you're going that way. Yeah, but I live that way. Yeah, I know, but you're going home the pretty way tonight. And I said, what do you mean? I live that way. I said, if you make any move to go in that direction, I will arrest you to prevent a breach of the peace. I'm not having this fight start round the corner. And eventually they all go. Then the publican came out to me and he said to me, oh, officer, I'm so glad you're here. There's a man in my pub, he's done 5 of my bouncers this week, I want him out. So I said, what's his name? He said, Harry. So I said, okay, let's go and see him, point him out to me. So he went in there, points him out, walked over to Harry, who's in the middle of an argument with this very tall guy. And I walked over and I said, evening, Harry. He looked at me, he said, you're a policeman? I said, yeah, I am, Harry. I'm a policeman with a problem you can help me with. And he said, what's that? I said, the publican doesn't want you in here, so I've been asked to escort you out. So he said, can I finish me beer? I said, well, you paid for it. Get it down in one and you can finish it and wash it down. He said, can I get me coat? I said, well, it's no good to anybody else, Harry. Picks up his coat and we walk out the door. As we're walking out the front door, along come 3 territorial support group vans. About 45 policemen come galloping through the doors, led by an inspector, truncheons at the ready. Where's the fight? Where's the fight? Where's the fight? There was no fight, it was all dealt with. But every time you see on the television, don't you, massive fights because these people jump out of vans and go belting into action without asking any questions. How many of you watch drink drivers being arrested on the television? Come on, you must have, right? Every single drink driver you see arrested on the television in this country, that arrest is illegal. And I'll tell you why. What do? They stop the car, the bloke falls out the car, and they say, right, I want you to blow into my machine. Don't they? And the guy blows into the machine and it goes red, and then they arrest him because he's provided a positive sample of breath, and he's off down the police station. It was illegal from minute one. Because when you stop a car and you want to breathalyse the driver, there is a little legal formula that you have to give him.